Hola guys, Katie here. Welcome to my full interview with Kimberly Tillman, the amazing costume designer from the iconic film 10 Things I Hate About You. If you haven't already, make sure you check out the corresponding episode of Film to Fashion, where I show you how to create your very own styles inspired by the characters from this movie. Don't forget to click subscribe for more great interviews and episodes. Hey, Kimberly.
Hi.
It's nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Pleasure.
Yeah, so when you first got the task that you were going to be dressing the cast for 10 Things I Hate About You, what was kind of like your first steps or even just your first thoughts?
I think the first thing was to try to talk to each of the cast members individually. And because they were so spread out, some were in New York and some were coming from Australia and some were in LA and some were elsewhere. So it was sort of really mapping out how I was going to get one-on-one time before we even talked about anything else, just to meet and hear their take on the character. So that took a while, it took a couple weeks.
And so when you kind of communicate with the actors like that, do they kind of give you an idea if they have like an image in their head of what they think the character looks like as well? Or?
A lot of them were kind of starting out, but Joseph Gordon-Levitt had been on a television show for a while, so he had a lot of experience. And then Larissa Olenek had been on the kids show, something Mac, I don't remember, I feel bad, but she was on a TV show, a Disney show. And so they kind of had images already, they had a lot of fans and they had a lot of, but the good news is they were playing completely different characters. And so I think those two had the most experience on camera. So they maybe had more ideas when they came to me, but it was really, I haven't had an experience exactly like that since, where every cast member was so open to, creating and building a character. So that was, it was great.
Heath Ledger is one of my favorite actors of all time, I guess, as a fellow Aussie as well. I just think he was incredible. And I have to ask about the scene where he wears those PVC pants in like going into the concert. How did that come about?
Well, I think as we went along, we definitely mapped out his look and a lot of his costumes. But as he got more involved with the character and more comfortable with the character, he was more daring. And, his character is the rebel. So, we shot that about halfway through. And I think at that point he was just really connecting with the character. And also, he's going into a club, it's, chick bands and it's all the girls and so we had to make him just so noticeable and so kind of macho, and it's that rebel without a cause kind of thing. I sort of couldn't help it. But yeah, he looked great in everything, but I was really excited that he went for it and that, the director and the studio executives let me, because a lot of times people have ideas of like, oh, that's to this or that's to, something. But in this sense, I think it looked very rock and roll. And that was what we were going for. So, yeah.
Like you mentioned about kind of having to check back with producers and things, is that usually the process can be a lot of back and forth when you're planning the wardrobes?
Absolutely. Again, this particular director really grasped the material, so he guided us, which is what you really want, what you hope for, and kind of brokered all the deals with, also the producers were quite experienced and helped me set up all my appointments, because again, it was like Heath came to Los Angeles for something else, so he had only 1 hour to meet, and then I had to go to New York to meet the others and so forth. So we had a team that knew they were there to facilitate rather than hinder or check people's work, or they were really there to create something. But yeah, the producers, I think also, to be honest, as we went along and when we were shooting in Seattle and Tacoma, I think they started to realize how kind of magical it was, the story was becoming and what was happening when these kids were on set. So they started getting even more involved, you know. So I'd have these quick fittings with Heath in his trailer where he'd be playing the didgeridoo. And then all the producers would kind of come around because they wanted to see, you know, what was he going to wear and was he going to look cool, because he had a lot of swagger and just his silhouette that we came up with together for his for that character too. So yeah, it was funny how everybody started kind of getting more involved with the fittings and even commenting. Like, I remember there was a thing with Julia Stiles. She really liked these sandals that we got her, and we sort of thought, well, this character is slightly moody and brooding, and at that age, you know, sometimes girls just wear something again and again and again, and so we decided that was her character thing. And a couple of the producers came up to me and said, you know, can she please, you know, wear some other shoes? And so they would get involved with stuff like that, and we'd have a discussion, and, you know, but yeah, they're very involved back then and still today.
What was the process like for sourcing all of the outfits? Was it a lot of just kind of high street fashion or custom made?
I think, I mean, the way I work is I have something in my head, and so I'll go out and try to find it. And often you do, you know, because I don't know if it's what comes first. Did you forget that you saw it in a fashion magazine and it happens to be what's in style? Or, you know, I mean, obviously starting with the character again and then just deciding on a color scheme and a look for them. When movies shoot on location like this, I did prep in LA, so a lot of times we start in LA. And then, again, going to New York to fit some of the actors, so I shopped there. I like, because this was, I think we talked about that before, but because it was based on Taming of the Shrew, there's a lot of classical elements. So that stuff I really wanted. I did thrift stores, costume houses, and everything was adjusted, you know. And then I did make a lot of stuff, a lot of Mandela's Shakespearean stuff was vintage, and then things we made. And then, you know, Heath, we custom made a few things, and then all the prom stuff I designed and had made. You know, it really is a combination. And in this one in particular, I would have to say there was a lot of vintage stuff. But also, you know, I know that those kids probably wouldn't shop at Barney's and Fred Segal, but I was finding what I was looking for there. So we did that, and Urban Outfitters too, you know. So, but I also find that, you know, those scenes were quite long. So, for example, those characters would have to wear pieces for so long. Like 1 hour scene, we might shoot different parts of it over 2 weeks. So I couldn't really buy a lot of cheaper clothes because they're not going to last. So I think Kat had some, like, I mean, I got some things in Chinatown, and I got, you know, she did have a few, like her army pants and a lot of vintage, but the Urban Outfitters things, I had to buy, you know, say 3, 4, or 5 of them because, you know, they'd wear out. But the PVC pants, only 1 pair. That was the one. That was it. They couldn't find any more of those, but...
Yeah, it sounds like you really drawed from all over the place then, which is cool to know, because I wasn't sure with it being like, you know, you were really dressing them kind of in current trends, but to know that you still managed to find some things vintage as well, I think that's really cool, because I do a lot of thrift shopping myself. So yeah, that's cool.
I think what people forget though about, like, when you go back to the 90s, you know, not everything was current. I mean, we wore old Levi's, and we liked 40s clothes, like you know, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's stuff was a lot of 40s stuff, because I felt like that was appropriate for that kind of smart character who was a bit quiet and so forth. So, but we did in the 90s, we wore vintage stuff. I mean, every decade has had sort of their obsession with eras past. You know, in the 80s we were doing 50s, and And I think it's fascinating now that people are into the 90s, because it was a bit of a tough era, but some of the stuff's great, obviously. Yeah.
Going back also to, you said some of the custom made pieces, I have to talk about the prom dresses, of course, because that's just such a big fashion moment in the film, especially Bianca's two-piece. So did you design that?
I did. And I felt like that was a great time to show the absolute femininity of both girls and how different they were. And I guess really for Kat more than Bianca, it was a transformation for her. So, because she's in baggy jeans and so forth. And I thought that it was just to have two colors that looked really pretty together, but also really showed, what they, just their there was sort of their ultimate colors, they looked the best at that moment. It's funny because that prom dress, there's been a lot of stuff about Bianca's prom dress lately. So I looked up a picture and I forgot about something that had happened that was kind of crazy. But so I got the dresses approved and we're making them, and we were in Seattle, so I didn't have my normal tailors, and so it took a little more time, say. So I get called up to the set. The director says, "You're gonna kill me, but we need to shoot a part of that scene tonight." And the dress was not ready and I said, we can't, it's not done. And he said, "No, we have to, because we're losing this location," or whatever it was. So we had to shoot the part where Bianca and Gabrielle Union's character are gonna leave and go to prom. Okay, so they're at the house and they're getting picked up and they're coming down the stairs. Well, it wasn't done. So we're frantically trying to, it was too baggy, it wasn't fitted, sticking little pins in it and taping it. And he's like, no, it won't matter. It's just a quick portion and then you'll have time to finish it for the big scene. And I was, of course, mortified. And it wasn't just a small part, it was a huge part. And you can totally tell that the top is too big for her. And then, of course, at the prom, it's perfect. And I actually, probably took me 5 years to get over that. I was pretty upset about it. It's just, it doesn't matter, I may have cried. I don't remember, but I may have. But because you love the movie, watch it. You'll see how different it looks when she's in that part of the scene to at the prom.
I don't think I've ever picked up on it, but yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and watch it now.
I wouldn't have wanted it that way, obviously, but director says he needs it. You got to give it to him.
So, do you have any advice that you would give to someone who's looking to kind of create a 90s inspired outfit that would really fit into that 10 Things I Hate About You mold?
I would say I'll pick Kat, for example. And I think the easiest thing to do would be to start with, vintage army pants, and then get one of the little either baby tees or a little tank top that's a little bit cropped, and sort of pair the baggy vintage kind of swaggy pants with a tight, maybe a little tie-dye and throw on some flip-flops and one cute little necklace, long straight hair, done, I think that she's probably my favorite, so that's where I'd start.
If someone was more, I guess a little bit more feminine and wanted to go for more Bianca's look, what advice would you have for that one?
I think with her, we did also, the shapes in the 90s were kind of, what's happening now. The shorter, a little bit cropped, not totally cropped, just show a little sliver of the midriff. But she did kind of classic sweater sets. And then sort of a little full flippy skirt and ankle socks and Mary Jane's. And I think, with her, it was that little flippy hairdo, rosy pink lips, and, throw in a little heart necklace or something. And I think that would be it.
So if I'm looking at doing some research on the 90s trends, how would you suggest I go about it?
I think the first thing to do is look at fashion magazines and then take all of the cultural influences from the 90s, from music to television shows to films, and also even look at the literature of the time and just kind of piece it all together like that.
Kimberly, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I feel like I've really got an insight into the world of wardrobe and costume design a little bit more, so thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Yeah, I will let you go, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, take care.